When measuring SpaceX's Starship achievements, the milestones are clear. Flight 1, Flight 2, Flight 3, Flight 4, Flight 5, Flight 6, and soon Flight 7. In contrast, the narrative surrounding Blue Origin's New Glenn has been defined by years of delays. 1 year turned into 2, then 3, and by the end of 2024, the rocket will have spent 4 years grounded. Despite this, Jeff Bezos's company remains undeterred. Blue Origin has boldly declared that New Glenn could still make its debut in 2024. The payload for New Glenn's first mission, NG-1, is reportedly ready to launch this year. Interestingly, SpaceX's Starship Flight 7 is also anticipated to occur in the final weeks of December. This overlap in timing seems to signal Blue Origin's determination to match SpaceX's pace, setting an ambitious benchmark for its team. But can they rise to the challenge? By the third week of December, a sharp contrast remains. While SpaceX's Starship program at Starbase continues to progress with visible momentum, New Glenn sits idle. No tests have been conducted on its two-stage stack. Addressing the delay, Blue Origin CEO Dave Lim explained that the testing process is awaiting FAA approval, a critical step the company is still working to secure. While we wait for regulatory approvals for hot fire and launch, from my understanding, once Blue Origin secures this permit, they could both conduct the static fire tests and proceed directly to launch, he said. If you think about it, this process seems more straightforward compared to SpaceX, which has to apply for permits for each individual Starship launch. Right? What do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But is Blue Origin overly confident about a launch at the end of 2024? Especially considering they previously had to postpone what was supposed to be the first mission for New Glenn, an important launch for NASA. Initially, the plan was to launch NASA's Escapade mission in October, but as the date approached, the space agency decided to delay the mission until 2025. At that time, Blue Origin stated they supported NASA's decision and announced they'd reschedule the second flight of New Glenn, originally planned for December, to November. However, Blue Origin has yet to launch any New Glenn rocket, let alone a second one. This delay seems to have been anticipated, as during a talk at AGU 24, Rob Lillis mentioned that the Escapade mission is now exploring launch opportunities for next year, in 2026, for the twin smallsats, which were initially set to launch in October aboard the first New Glenn. These opportunities would align with an arrival at Mars in 2027. Therefore, the launch schedule recently revealed by Blue Origin appears to be unreliable. On top of that, the progress Blue Origin has made with New Glenn is far from convincing to suggest that they have a fully flight-ready rocket. Even the timeline for conducting a static fire test for the rocket seems unrealistic. For example, SpaceX's Starship demonstrates exceptionally fast turnaround, with the shortest gap between a static fire test and an official flight being about 15 days. This allows sufficient time to address and resolve any issues that might arise during the testing phase, ensuring the rocket is ready for a successful launch. Of course, this timeline is even more critical for a brand new rocket like New Glenn. Millions of things can go wrong during a maiden launch, and even a single issue could result in the loss of the vehicle. For a rocket as big and complex as New Glenn, which integrates numerous new components and software, there's a high likelihood of encountering latent issues that may only become apparent during the actual flight. Moreover, Blue Origin needs to launch its New Glenn rocket to determine the vehicle's performance margins. Sources indicate that the current version of New Glenn has a payload capacity closer to 25 tons, lower than the advertised 45 tons. This discrepancy is not uncommon for new launch vehicles, and the company will need to use real-world performance data to refine the rocket's hardware and software for future flights. However, such improvements can only be made after launch, once the necessary data has been collected and analyzed. Another challenge is Blue Origin's goal of achieving partial reusability with New Glenn. The company plans to attempt recovery of the rocket's first stage during its inaugural flight, a bold move with substantial risk. Even if successful, New Glenn will still face fierce competition in the highly competitive launch market, particularly from SpaceX. SpaceX has been a pioneer in partial reusability for over a decade, setting a high standard that Blue Origin will need to meet to stay competitive. Is partial reusability too little or too late for Blue Origin and other startup space companies? That question is not easy to answer, as we currently have only two practical examples of successful first-stage rocket reusability: SpaceX and Rocket Lab. While SpaceX focuses on reducing costs for customers, Rocket Lab emphasizes increasing the launch frequency of its Electron rocket through reusability. When executed well, first-stage reusability can reduce the cost of launching satellites into orbit, as SpaceX's success clearly demonstrates. Additionally, reusability can enhance rocket reliability. NASA, on multiple occasions, has expressed a preference for flight-proven boosters over entirely new ones. SpaceX has leveraged this strategy effectively, using its Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets across various phases of their life cycle, from the high-risk initial flights to stable commercial operations during midlife. To maximize benefits, however, SpaceX appears to be looking beyond Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Company executives, including Elon Musk, have repeatedly emphasized that they are preparing to transition from their current rocket lines to focus entirely on Starship. According to SpaceX's vision, Starship is not just the next step, but a vehicle that will enable space transport at low costs with superior reliability. Recently, SpaceX's president, Gwynne Shotwell, shared their goal of launching Starship up to 400 times in the next 4 years, an ambitious number that reflects SpaceX's determination to dominate the space industry. After all, if Starship achieves the success SpaceX envisions, does that mean the industry's goals have been redefined by the pioneering company itself? The worst-case scenario for the industry is that, as Starship starts winning contracts, satellite manufacturers may flock to it due to lower costs, even if they don't need the full capacity that Starship offers. This scenario, unfortunately, presents challenges for competitors like Blue Origin, ULA, and Relativity Space. Many of their rockets, whether still in development or ready for launch, might find themselves at a disadvantage against a fully reusable vehicle like Starship. Critically, many of these companies are directing their efforts toward competing with Falcon 9, a rocket that's proven highly effective but only offers partial reusability in the first stage. The greatest cost associated with operating Falcon 9 for SpaceX comes from the second stage, which cannot currently be reused. In contrast, Starship is designed to fundamentally change the landscape by making both stages fully reusable. This shift could leave competitors struggling to keep up if they don't find innovative solutions. A more viable scenario might be that smaller companies, like Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, and Relativity Space, will need to carve out niche markets focused on specialized launch contracts. However, even in such a scenario, SpaceX will likely dominate the launch market with the cost advantages of more affordable rockets. This trend is reminiscent of what we saw just a few years ago with the rise of small satellite launch providers. A flurry of new companies emerged, capitalizing on relatively low-cost investment capital, but many dreams of launching CubeSats daily never materialized, and several of these companies had to shut down. The space industry is evolving at a breathtaking pace, pushing boundaries like never before. But this rapid transformation poses a critical question. Can a new player in the commercial launch market, like Blue Origin, with its partial reusability strategy, truly compete with a behemoth like SpaceX? Blue Origin has ambitious goals, securing government contracts through its Blue Moon lunar lander, offering LEO commercial flights via New Shepard, and providing space station services through Orbital Reef. Yet is that enough to position it as the next SpaceX? Blue Origin has crafted a vision that makes it a compelling alternative for government and commercial partnerships. However, it still falls short of being a genuine rival to SpaceX. Despite its promise, the gap between the two companies remains vast. While change is always possible, SpaceX's commanding lead makes a major industry shift unlikely anytime soon. Much like tech companies in the early 2000s that tried to replicate Apple's meteoric success, Blue Origin faces a similar challenge with SpaceX. Both SpaceX and Apple share a rare quality. They don't just follow trends, they create them. SpaceX, in particular, isn't preoccupied with direct competition. It has a mission that transcends rivalry: to take humanity to Mars and revolutionize a historically stagnant industry in desperate need of innovation. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. 1, 2, 3.